the past 2 seasons, we've had no fruit production in our orchard as a result of late freezes in the spring. This year, as a response to that, and also likely because of the severe drought last year, our fruit trees are producing abundant crops. And while we're certainly happy to get fruit, too much fruit can cause some problems in the tree. The first of these is the weight. Simply the weight of all that fruit weighs down the branches, and it can cause some of these to break and snaps, and that's not good for the overall health of our tree. Another problem is if we allow too many fruits to remain this year, we're not going to have good production next year. Each summer, while the tree's ripening its current fruit crop, it's also putting some energy into the buds that are going to produce next season's crop. So if it's putting too much energy into these fruits, it's not going to have enough left over to produce the next season's crop. And what we end up having are cycles of boom and bust in terms of fruit production. We'll have a heavy yield one year followed by a low yield the next. To break that cycle, we can use thinning. It's a special type of pruning where we come in and remove some of the fruit. Now, even in a year of normal fruit production, we practice thinning, again to avoid that boom-bust cycle, and also just to improve the quality of the fruits that remain on the tree. By removing some of the fruit, the tree can put more energy into those that remain, so they're going to be larger and of better quality. Another benefit that we receive from thinning is we increase the air circulation around those fruits, which helps limit disease. And also, disease can't spread as easily. So if this apple had become infected with disease, it would very easily pass to those adjacent to it. But if the fruits were spread out among the branches, that would be much less of a problem. Thinning is commonly practiced on palm fruits like apples and pears, and stone fruits like plums and peaches. The amount of thinning is going to vary according to the species you're working with. Now, trees will naturally drop flowers and fruit at different points during their development. If you look beneath this plum, the ground is littered with fruits that have fallen off. This is called June drop, and it's a natural thinning that the tree undertakes. And even though it's called June drop, it actually in Oklahoma occurs in May. In farther north states, it occurs in June, and that's where it gets the name. So this is one way the tree naturally thins itself. It tends to drop the smallest, weakest fruits, or those that might have disease or insects developing in them. But when we have a heavy crop like this, June drop might not be enough to thin the crop, so we want to come in and do that ourselves. For small fruits like the plum and also apricots, we want to leave one fruit every 4 inches. And so I'm going to start at the tip and work my way back, and here we have 2 close together. So I'm going to look at those and remove the smaller one. These are pretty crowded. I want to take those apart, and then I'm going to space one more 4 inches and remove that, and I'll continue working up the stem. And here we have some fairly clustered together. I'm going to have to remove all but one of those, and there's another one spread down. And we're good. This is a little time consuming, but you do this for the entire tree, just kind of working your way in. If they drop naturally, then there's probably something wrong with them. They might have an insect or disease. And just continue to thin. For a little bit larger fruits, like your nectarines, we're going to leave one fruit every 4 to 6 inches. And then for peaches, we want to space those about 6 inches apart. Now, rather than measuring, I just use the distance between my outstretched thumb and pinky and use that as an estimate of how much space to leave between the fruits. Apples and pears produce their fruits in clusters with 1 or 2 or up to 4 or 5 fruits in each cluster. Now we're going to thin these to a density similar to the peaches, where we have 1 cluster every 6 inches. Now on this branch I have 1, 2, 3 clusters closely together. So I need to remove 2 of these. And when I look at them, the apples on here seem to be healthiest. This one shows some insect damage, and that looks like a scar from egg laying. So I'm going to remove the apples on these clusters, and that's going to leave me with this 1 cluster at the bottom. And in here, now I don't want to leave all 3 fruits. I want to thin that back to either 1 or 2 of the healthiest looking fruits. There's one that's going to abort itself anyway. And then I'll take this one off, and that leaves me with 2 good looking fruits that'll produce nice mature apples. Now at the bottom of the tree, it's easy enough to remove the apples by hand, but the top of the tree is a little bit harder to thin. For this, we could get a long pole and hit the apples to knock them off. And it takes a little bit of practice to get good at knocking those off the tree, but it's an effective way to thin the tops of the tree. When you've finished thinning your trees, you want to pick up the fallen fruits. They can attract pests to the landscape that we don't want. Bring those to the compost pile or dispose of them. And remember, always practice good sanitation. That'll help protect the health of your trees.